Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Mrs. Roshni Sen, Ullas Bhai, Rudro, Moshmi, and all of you present here. Let me start on a lighter note. When Mr. Kamath mentioned about family businesses getting extinct generation after generation, I was trying to recollect how many generations back did we start. And I was almost thinking that I'm perhaps like a dinosaur here, because in the third generation he said it's 0.4%, and I'm the sixth generation and my son is the seventh, so we are probably extinct. But having said that, I also want to say that this is a half-truth. When I say it's a half-truth, is that it is true that we have been in business for a little over 125 years, but we have been in different businesses. So the business that we were in 125 years ago are obviously not the businesses we are in today. Also, the organization has metamorphosized into different streams. I think and this is very interesting, because when Mr. Kamath was trying to do, I was just jogging my memory and I might have some numbers wrong, but our first organization that was really formalized was called Tarachand Ghanshyam Das, which was registered sometime in the early 1900s. Now that firm got dissolved in 1950 or 52. That 50 years, the family obviously was together in the business because it was a trading business and different members of the family were together. Then from the 50s to the 80s, it morphed into another organization, and the family had split in the 50s, and one branch, which is our branch, continued to be in a different business. And then from 80s onwards, we set up the cement business, which was again jointly between our family and my uncle's family, Mr. Seksaria from Bombay. And then it was in the mid-2000, 2006 to be precise, that we divested our interest in Ambuja Cement, and I set up Ambuja Neotia and started working towards real estate, hospitality and healthcare. That's what we are presently engaged with. So if you look at that entire 125-year journey, it's all been businesses, but it has changed in some form or the other. I would take a little different view. I'm not going to speak specifically about my business or any specific industry. I'm going to look at a couple of points which might be helpful, and these are thoughts which have been in my mind while we were sort of looking at our own structure of our own business. One thing I must say, and I must put a caveat here, that post the 1980 kind of period, our families, it so happened that there were not too many people in the next generation. So, for instance, my father were three brothers, but then I happened to be the only son amongst the three brothers, and I have only one son. Now, if it's, I don't want to be sounding misogynistic here, but in the olden times, when the girl got married, she went to her new home and she was not really actively involved in the father's business. If my daughter is hearing it, she will think it's heretic for me to even think about it, because she will and certainly be a part of my business, is a part of my business, and hopefully will continue to be a part of my business. So the things have changed between the gender situation in our country and in the world. So, but in the past, that was how it was. So my sisters, for instance, they did inherit some wealth, but they didn't inherit any business, because they got married off, one almost 40 years back, one 30 years back, and they are doing different things. The issue that is very important, and I think to an extent my family has sort of tried to practice it in some way, is that, see, all of us have different interests, and particularly across generations, there are different interests. My father were three brothers. They were very, very close to each other, but they were like chalk and cheese. They would argue till the cows come home. The dinner table used to be boisterous. They loved each other, but they had very, very independent views. And one of the interesting things happened, fortunately, like Mr. Kamath mentioned, is that they sometimes looked after the same business but different aspects of it. Never the same aspect. But there was a hierarchy of command. And the hierarchy of command was that the eldest in the family, वो जो बोल दिया सो बोल दिया. Remember Amitabh Bachchan's dialogue in Kabhi Khushi Kabhi Gum. कह दिया सो कह दिया. So when my uncle would say anything, then it was a diktat. Me being the only son have taken great advantage on a lighter note again. And whenever I got onto the wrong end of my father's wrath, I went to uncle and tattled to him that dad is being a little bit too strict on me. And then he would say, nahi, chhod do usko. And my dad would be left with nothing to do because keh diya so keh diya. So I have been a beneficiary of this hierarchy that worked brilliantly, particularly when you want to be a little deviant and you don't want to do everything that your dad wants you to do. But so there was two things. One, allow the person to do what he's good at or what he wants to do, and yet have the discipline of the hierarchy of command. That's one very important thing in a family. The other thing that I have noticed is, see, many members in the family work and others don't work, and that's a fact. They don't work in the sense they work in so many other aspects, philanthropic aspects, family aspects. Sometimes a homemaker's job is probably as valuable as some of us. Sometimes we undervalue it. But in terms of so-called wealth creation, the responsibility lies elsewhere. And therefore there is a tendency to often feel that you have done it, you've built the business. But my family used to always say, and they continue to say, that, you know, it is the blessing and the emotion of everyone that gets involved in the success. So even if you are fronting the success, don't think it's your success. Even if you are doing the hard work in the sense, in the business side of it, remember that your mother or your grandmother or someone else in the family who's not actively involved is somewhere contributing because they are blessing it, they are adding their emotions to it, and in some way also you are a trustee of their wealth. So if you have that in mind, you don't take too much of that credit onto yourself, and you say that you are, let's say, just like any professional manager would be, that I've been given a job to run the company, but I also know that I'm not the shareholder of the company. The shareholders in a family business are the family members, because their collective wealth and goodwill is involved. The other very important point is about passion. I think increasingly today, you can't really do a business if you're not very passionate about it. The competitive landscape is extremely tough. Many times, people who inherit their business, they just run the business because it gives them livelihood or it gives them income, but not because they're passionately driven about it. The idea of passion is important because it is only with passion that you get creative energy. You can get administrative skills even otherwise, but creative energy, which is very important to keep that cutting edge in your enterprise, will only come if you're passionate about what you do. So, as Mr. Kamath also mentioned, that you have to have the balance between family, business and management. There are some businesses that we as a family own or owned historically, but today is not managed by me. They are managed by our partners, which in some cases are my cousins, simply because I couldn't find the passion to do that. So therefore left it to someone who could muster the passion greater than me. And that's one of the reasons I happen to be doing a lot of businesses that virtually were founded by me even though I come from a legacy family. So passion, I think, is cornerstone to success. And I will say something finally, which is a little counterintuitive, but I've often mulled over it. Businesses can't be run for income. Now, you will find this extremely odd statement, but I do strongly believe that unless you run a business because you believe that you have something to offer which can bridge the gap of the expectation of the consumer with an idea that you have to offer, I don't think you can have a sustainable long-term business. Today, just because you want to be earning something is no reason to be in business. It's better that you put the money in mutual funds or some other, maybe even in the stock market if you're a little bit aware of how it works. I'm not aware of how it works. I keep away from it. But that's not to say that a lot of my friends haven't made a killing on the stock market. So, but if you really want to do a business, you must be more passionate, not so much about the income, which should, God willing, happen, but should be for the reason why you want to do it. The particular gap that you see in the demand that is there and the supply that is there, and how do you fill that gap. And if you can continue to think that way, that how do I bring some value to this, the chances are that you will keep finding a niche and you'll be able to do successful businesses as you go forward. I'd like to close my remarks by saying, ultimately, your children will have different interests, but the only thing that will keep a family together are values. It's not important what interests they have. It's important that they are united on the values, the value towards the stakeholders in the family, the value towards society, the values of ethics. Mr. Kamath mentioned the need for being absolutely right on the legal side, on the regulatory side, because of today's changed environment, all of which is very important for creating a sustainable value structure for the family, which everyone must adhere to. You may have different interests, and that's quite fine. We can live with all that, but we can't live with it if people have different values. Thank you very much.